We take these meetings that you just booked and we convert them into revenue through a multi-channel complex sales process. And specifically how we break the referral ceiling and operationalize the shift from cold outbound for sustainable, scalable revenue growth. So we have built the fortress and infrastructure. We've got our radar signals to find qualified market buyers. We have bridged the gap for turning cold calls into relationships, and now we're going to harvest. We're going to turn these meetings into revenue. But make sure to stay until the end because everybody who stays gets the deep dive discovery script and the mutual action plan template. So the referral ceiling is what we all face in business when growth hits a wall, right? So we B2B companies, small B2B companies build their initial success on networking and referrals, and it works in the early stages on the founders network. And the close rates are really high, usually like 50, 60%, and revenue grows steadily. So until it doesn't, right? And so this does have an expiration date in terms of how long it works for. So eventually that kind of well runs dry and we need to start tapping into new strategies, right? We need to try inbound marketing or outbound prospecting. And so that is where many companies turn to and why they start using Apollo is they want to start leveraging growth on demand and taking control of their own destiny. And so leadership faces this sort of critical inflection point that forces a fundamental shift in their strategy. And so to break through that ceiling and unlock that next stage, we need to actually turn outbound sales. This is one of the many channels that we can use to grow on demand. And so the strategy is a difficult one, right? You need more resources. You need to change the way you sell, the tools that you use. Everything has to shift,
Yeah,
right? Win rates.
yeah. So
Mhm.
the entire audience could change, right?
Yeah.
And even having you can hit really good revenue and do really well for years on end with a solid network and solid referrals, especially if you've like been in the market for a long time, you've got a really deep Rolodex. But even success with your referrals, that might not even not still might not even be like, larger scale product market fit or prove larger scale product market fit. So now is where really the test begins. And I think outbound really does need to have a hypothesis driven mindset for sure. Because you can kind of have a lot of, unfortunately, false confidence built with a referral network and referral
Mhm.
based business.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's a big thing that I see is people that are starting to use outbound as a strategy, and they're like, I'm not getting deals closed within 30 to 60 days. I can't afford to to waste money, right? And I think the thing to realize is it's an investment. You're not just going to get ROI like in 90 days or something. It's going to take years to build this machine that converts predictably. I know it has for me and many of my clients. Um, I think that we underestimate we overestimate how quickly it's going to take, but we underestimate how powerful and predictable and successful it can be once we do it, right? Like after years of doing this, I couldn't think of doing it any other way. I think ultimately the goal is to not just do one thing, right? No, just don't rely on networking and referrals. Just don't do outbound, but also do inbound. Do all of it, right? And establish where you're getting the lowest customer acquisition cost.
Yep.
So how do we make this work, right? It's about harvesting versus farming. So referral sales is harvesting pre-established mutual connections, right? We're just picking the fruit that's been gathered because people already know who we are and they've been referred to us. We know they have a problem. Whereas outbound sales is farming. You start with absolutely zero credibility. They don't know who you are. There's no trust. You have to earn that from scratch and be patient and strategic. And you prepare the soil, you plant seeds, you nurture growth. Waiting to harvest, requires a different set of skills and longer timelines and discipline. And so that is what we're talking about here specifically in this one. It's an easy mode trap to just rely on referrals or people that come to you organically, right? We want to ultimately, you know, um, take control of our own like sales destiny. And so that means that we're going to have to follow up with these opportunities, for more than a few months, sometimes even years to get them to actually, to be successful. So most companies quit at outbound with month three, I see, like they'll give it 3 months, and even before the third month, in the second month, they're already thinking like, when can I kill this and where can I put this budget elsewhere? I think if you're going to run a real experiment, you have to go all in. You can't just test it.
It's like, I mean, it's a year,
Hmm.
honestly.
Yeah.
Doing it pretty disciplined too. I mean, it's not being complacent. It's definitely, and we'll talk later about this a little bit, but like it's hypothesis testing and changing it every couple of weeks, right? It is iterating and making sure you have somebody disciplined with it too, and doing the honest outbound effort on it, and make those changes because it's definitely going to be, yeah, closing in on a year. I mean, you can hit it, okay, fine, within the first month or two, but that's really damn lucky.
hmm Yeah. Yeah, you have to execute flawlessly, and most teams are not executing flawlessly at all. Like there's mistakes that happen, um, things come up, take longer than expected. So you just have to give yourself a buffer in whatever you're doing, a buffer of budget, a buffer of time. Um, you have to do it right.
So I think one good thing back to like the referrals based, if that is your starting point, which I mean typically is, um, give like really deep analysis on why your current clients are with why they came on board with you in the first place, beyond the fact that they're whatever your brother-in-law. Why are they on board with you? Why are they, how are you actually solving their problem, and why are they actually succeeding with you? Like really deep understanding there. That's the kernels that you want to then take into the actual outbound strategy beyond the fact that, oh, they're a mid-sized software company, so that's who I'm going to go target. That's not what you need to replicate or try to replicate in my mind. It really is going to be more about like, deep understanding of why they're with you, and what pain you're solving. And
Mhm.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and this goes back to what we talked about in the previous session, which is using messaging that opens the door, right? So we have a hypothesis-based entry about the problems that they're facing based on our research and experience. We're using a radical candor script to establish ourselves as a trusted advisor, and then we're pivoting to peer-to-peer. So we sound like we know what we're talking about, we know what we're doing because we have a lot of perspective, right? And if you have a lot of perspective, then you must be an expert. You must know how to solve my problem. So that's ultimately what we're trying to do is come in with a perspective and insight that's going to get the prospect to trust us because we know something about their world, about their business. So a hypothesis-based entry might be something like we're seeing CFOs and logistics struggle with a 12% rise in audit failures due to new compliance codes. Is that hitting your radar? Uh, Radical candor opening is I realize you probably weren't expecting my call, but do you mind if I tell you why I'm calling? And you can let me know if it makes sense to speak. This is the same script from the last session for cold calling. And so the sort of upfront contract, to put it in Sandler terms, is to set clear expectations at the beginning of the call, establishing like what this meeting is going to be about. We're not sure if we're a good fit for each other or going to even do business, but we're going on a journey together to identify if we can help each other. And so this also gives them an opportunity to uncover what is important to them that they want to discuss in this call. What do they want to get out of the meeting? And then establishing that it's okay to say no. No is the second best answer in sales because then you're not wasting. It's that maybe that kills us, wasting time and money on follow up.
Yeah, and I
Uh,
think a big part of that is going to be how you're structuring your sales journey as well, and let them know what the process is. What are all the steps, and what is kind of the final conversation going to be? And if we can solve for X, Y, Z, Mark, would there be anything stopping us from actually going forward with a with an engagement here? And let them know that they are honestly, they are a part of a sales cycle, right?
mhm.
You do need to be kind of clear about that, that there is going to be a decision to be made at the end of our conversations. And if you're not comfortable with that, then yeah, cool. We can revisit this later.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like what we did in the beginning here, actually. If we look at the slides, you're essentially saying, like, hey, like, those maps at the mall, it's like you are here and this is where your destination is, right? So we are starting by showing them where they're at, showing them the destination and the outcome. We don't have to go on this journey. We can, it's up to you, but this is for both of us to decide together. Uh, Let's see. So, yeah, what I like to do, what I think is super key, super important when meeting with a prospect is to, yeah, establish that mutual respect and trust. Like, I don't even know if I can help you or if we're the right fit. So, what we'll do is I'm going to ask you some questions about your business, some diagnostic questions, just to understand what's working and what's not working. And if I can help you, I'll explain how. If I can't, I'll tell you up front, and I'll make some recommendations for some other things for you should to consider. At the same time, if you decide that this isn't a fit for whatever reason, will you let me know? It's giving them permission to say no. And then great, in the end of this meeting, If we want to move forward, the next step would be to schedule a follow-up meeting, or to do a demo, or to put together a proposal, whatever it is, and involve other stakeholders or people. Is that okay with you? Yeah, sure. Great. And so we're planting that seed at the beginning of the meeting and talking about what success looks like at the end of this meeting, just like you said. So here's the reason why outbound discovery and selling is so different, right? Is there's a difference between outbound prospects with their level of awareness and understanding, depending compared to where your referrals and even your inbound leads are. Is We're targeting different levels of awareness, right? They might be problem aware, which outbound leads often think the status quo is fine. They haven't identified pain yet. Um, Problem aware is they recognize something is wrong, but they don't know the full cost or impact. And then solution aware is where referrals start. They know they have a problem and are looking for a fix. And so your job is to create what's called rational drowning in uh, challenger terms, using data to reveal the hidden costs in their fine status quo. So you aren't teaching them about your product, you're teaching them about the problems they didn't even know that they had.
And for me, it's a lot of it's like asking kind of smart leading questions, right? How are you solving for this today? Or is this, current pain? So, I mean, kind of allowing them to walk into, and state their own problem out loud without you presenting it to them and just regurgitating it back to them, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, and I think back to your point, just kind of I grounded in a little bit of a reality and some data as well. But like, referrals, it really varies on conversion rates to actual end clients, but that can be 30, 50%. You can be even better than that. Think of like inbound. If you have an inbound funnel set up, that's going to be anywhere from like 18 to 25% close rates. It is going to be lower with outbound, typically like 12 to 15%. And again, depending on average deal size, industry, people you're selling to, of course. But it is going to be kind of on the lower range. But then, I think keep your expectations managed for sure, but then understand that that outbound is also back to our longer term play. That is a muscle that you're building. Those are conversations that you have started. And I've been in an organization where we were able to trace back 20% of our inbound leads were from conversations that we had had 12, 18 months prior, and they just came back through our front door. So I think
yeah,
it's about also managing and being disciplined, even on those calls that don't have great timing right now, making sure that you do remain disciplined and own, a really valuable conversation with them because they will come back once the time is right. So I'm sorry, I wanted to just interject that there.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the reason why you still should do outbound, even though the conversion rate is lower, is because the deal sizes are much larger. You're proactively choosing who you want to target, so you might as well go big, right? The deals that come through inbound are typically lower and can be hit or miss.
Well, yeah, inbound, like I said, you get what you get. Outbound, you're being very deliberate with who you're actually engaging. So that's going to really, you're going to have mind gold right from the start, at least in terms of company
Yeah.
profile. But
Hmm. Yeah. And so the golden rule here is no pain, no demo, right? Um, in outbound, the urge is always show your product to sell. Maybe they'll be interested enough to buy it, but we want to avoid giving away our value and giving away everything that we have to offer, because it's a desperation to prove value quickly. Um, it's essentially like unpaid consulting. You want to make sure that you're not wasting your time. And so if you don't reach that emotional level where you're understanding who will be held accountable if the problem persists, you don't have a champion. You have a friend, and friends don't sign contracts or fight internal battles on your behalf. Um, and even the financial level alone isn't enough. We want to understand the surface issue, the financial impact of that, as well as the emotional reason why. We want to get like three layers deep. So the technical problem is what's broken. Um, we're not getting enough leads. Financial impact is, we have growth targets of 20% year over year growth, and we're only growing at 5%, or we're flat. So we're missing out on 20% growth year over year. That's costing us hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. And the emotional impact is, who is this breathing down their neck? How do you feel about the issue? How is this affecting, how you show up and perform in your role, right? And these are things that require trust, um, and rapport for us to be able to get. Ultimately, discovery is like therapy, right? There's all these things that we think subconsciously, but until they come out into the conscious awareness, they're not really real. And it's easy to ignore them or put them off. And so that's why we ask all of these questions and we earn trust, because There's a lot going on in a discovery call, and we need to get permission to dig deep and ask these questions because they can be, you know, I've had prospects before where they just start, they get, I didn't do a good job of getting permission to ask these questions, and they start like taking control of the call or like getting upset that I'm asking these big questions, like how is this impacting you personally, or something. So always make sure to
Yeah,
um, get
I
permission.
I was gonna say, well, we can go back to that one. I think just order of operations. It has to lead with a ton of discovery. Focus on like a good stat would be as close to 50-50 talk time on your initial conversation for sure. And if you're, 70% or greater on your talk time, then something is definitely wrong and your conversion rates are definitely gonna, I think
Mm.
I would surmise struggle. And then also when you have your agenda, you kind of done your pre-call research, you know what you want to discuss and then kind of just shelve that and go to being a person, just being a human with your content,
Mhm.
right? Understand the call to action. So what you did all this hard work on getting them engaged, whether it's through email, with cold calling, whatever it is, but understand the call to action that got them to the table, and then ask them. I mean, I think I on almost 100% of my discos, once I'm kind of getting ready to get into the meat of this the conversation, it is what compelled you to take some time with me today. That's
Yeah.
right. And you know exactly what they're looking to get for it. They just say, you know what, I just want a demo. That's all I freaking want. You're never gonna hear that, but okay, fine. You kind of know what you need to lead them with, but they're typically gonna, at least set up the pain that they were looking to address on the call. Now you absolutely have something very tailored that you can anchor into. So if you don't ask that, then I mean you're kind of, I think, starting off in a um kind of in with the blinders on to begin with.
Yeah, I love that question because I ask something similar. I say, what was your motivation for taking this call? Because that's the thing that we want to say in our emails. That's the thing we want to say when we're calling people on the phone is that little snippet, whatever the pattern is that we're hearing from the people that are meeting and taking discovery calls and ideally closing and doing business with us is what do they believe? About us, about their organization, about our solution that caused them to take that meeting, right? And if you look at the beliefs of those prospects who took that meeting versus the prospects who didn't take the meeting or who took the meeting but didn't move forward in the sales process, I think you'll notice two very different scenarios. And one of my favorite things to do to leverage AI, and you can do this within Apollo as well, is you can take all your transcripts and you can upload it to AI and you can ask it to look at all these PDFs of all of the prospects that you've met with. Let's say you uploaded 50 discovery calls. Tell me the beliefs and the behaviors of the prospects that moved forward in the process and did business with us um, versus the prospects that didn't move forward. And then it's going to tell you, right? And then what do you do with that information? Well, you need to make sure that you, in your marketing, in your sales messaging and communication is you are communicating the change that people need to, the beliefs that need to adopt to go from where they are now, which is not getting results, not going to do business with you, or believing that this is a viable solution, to wanting to do business with you because you pre-framed them in their mind in terms of your solution. And so those are some really cool things that I think conversation intelligence is enabling us to do is get market insights like that. So moving on to navigating the buying committee and selling to indivisible stakeholders. The person that you're meeting with is usually not the person that's going to sign off. They're usually an influencer, maybe even just somebody that's doing due diligence. And so you enter bottom up or side in, meaning you have to sell 3 to 5 stakeholders essentially who didn't really ask for the conversation and they may not even know you exist. And so we need to map the power grid. Um, and identify who could kill the deal versus who can champion it. We need a consensus construction, so arming the champion with assets to fight internal battles and defeating the status quo, which is doing nothing. Who else would be upset if this project failed? We need their perspective before building a proposal, or this gets stuck in their inbox. Um, some questions I like to ask are first building a lot of rapport with the person and connecting with them and identifying that this is a solution that they want to solve and that they are considering me as the primary candidate for helping them with this. And usually I ask them, like if this was your decision, Michael, what would you decide? Now you're asking them at the end of the call and sometimes usually it's a rhetorical question because it seems like we've had really good vibes and really good engagement throughout the call. So they say, well, yeah, I think if it was my decision, I would probably go with you, or I would strongly consider this. And then I would say, okay, great. Who else do we need to involve in this process, and what questions or concerns are they going to have about this? And then they're going to walk me through their entire buying committee and tell me what we need to talk about, what we need to say or do to avoid landmines and deal breakers, and ultimately answer their questions so they feel undeniably fulfilled.
Yeah. I think a lot of this ties into, and I think everybody that's still here, like it's going to tie into a very deliberate sales journey that you need to build according to how does your demonstration work? How tailored can it be to each sales journey that you've got and each prospect you're talking through? And you should have whether it's one, likely not one, but two, four, six, calls along the way, typical in your buying cycle. Every single one should stack into another stakeholder on that call, right? So I think that's, just multi-threading is typically going to be, I think, in direct relation to your buying journey. So I think understanding that really well and what steps do you take on each call and how are you snowballing
Mhm.
going forward is something that you need to I think spend a lot of time theorizing on and getting it really well structured.
Mhm. Yeah, and instead of uploading transcripts, you can absolutely integrate Apollo or any other conversation intelligence tool that you have so that it is constantly generating documentation and summarizing your conversations in real time. That's obviously a more advanced thing that we can certainly talk about in the Apollo lab and how to set that up. But yeah, that is definitely something that we are doing and that we recommend for sure. So defeating the status quo is quantifying the cost of inaction. That's what it's all about. So 67% of B2B deals end in no decision rather than choosing a competitor, and 23% end in a quarterly budget shift, which is lack of urgency. And so what I see is that opportunities live longer than priorities in initiatives, right? So typically, there's a ton of shifts and changes in priorities for an initiative during the sales process, and so oftentimes that's why deals are dying. They just get distracted, or other priorities come up, or the budget gets reallocated, and that's why it's so key to engage early and often with as many people as you can to see this deal through to the end. And that requires a lot of follow-up. It requires scheduling a meeting at the end of every single sales call, which is the biggest mistake that I see that salespeople make, is that they just result in like email communication, even late in the deal. Like it's like you're in a proposal stage and you don't schedule follow-up, and they ghost you because they get really busy with other priorities, and then you don't hear from them for a month or two, and you're committing to your sales leader that you've got this deal that's going to close, but the reality is you haven't spoken to them in a month. So
If I know they'll pick up
yeah,
my cell, if they, I know they'll pick up my mobile call, and I know that they'll answer my texts, especially the earlier on the better.
yeah,
My conversion rate's just gotten to like the 80%, 80%.
good point. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, all clients and prospects I try to get on as text as soon as possible. Um, and so the way that we close this loop is with a few things, with a mutual action plan, which is realizing that closing isn't an event. It's a bridge that you build from day one, right? So you don't hope that they know how to buy. You actually co-author the plan together and work backwards from their launch date to lock in every milestone and independency. And so, as mentioned, I'm going to be showing you how to get access to the mutual action plan template that we've created for you. And next is BAMFAM. So this is book a meeting from a meeting. This saves me so much time because I have lots of sales meetings. I've had lots of sales meetings for years, and I never let prospects walk away without a meeting, because I'll tell them, hey, I'm going to get so busy, I'm going to forget about this. I'm busy like you. If this meeting is not on my calendar, it's going to be hard for me to find the time to call you back or email you back. I've just got a million other things. Like my calendar is my priority, and it is for your prospects as well. All it takes is just not accepting the first no. At the end of each meeting, typically at this point, we would set up, a demo, or we would set up a proposal meeting or a follow-up meeting. Um, when should we get back together? And then they tell me, or they say, oh, I got to talk to the team internally. Let me get back to you in a couple of weeks, or why don't you follow up with me in 2 weeks? Oh, understood. I know. how time consuming and how many moving parts there are in internal discussions. Just to avoid this falling through the cracks, can we put a tentative time on the calendar for sometime next week or the following, or after you have a chance to have that meeting? And then they'll say sure. And it's just a stake in the ground. You could always cancel or reschedule if something comes up. And then the third is the long-term nurture standard. So every month, nurture stage opportunities receive a deposit, which is going to be relevant articles, market insights, or case studies to keep you top of mind. There's no just checking in emails allowed. And so this is something that you can work with marketing or with your team to just set up like a drip email once a month for any active opportunities, just to send them information about their situation, their problems, their opportunities, their pain points that you discussed to keep them top of mind. And so next, we're going to be talking about just how do we use AI coaching to scale our outbound and to score our calls, to recognize patterns, to target coaching. And so, Michael, you put together a couple of slides here for us for like just the conversation intelligence inside of Apollo. You want to kind of walk us through what we're looking at here?
Yeah, just, I mean, small feature, but I think it should be incorporated in anybody who's doing any, I mean, honestly, you could use it at any role, but especially if they're, direct line of sales. Yeah, just, I mean, really basic. I think speed kills all deals. And as soon as you wrap and as soon as your call is published, specifically within Apollo, you can, and I think somebody even dropped it in the chat, draft up a really quick follow-up, really actionable follow-up email, and at least have that structure there that you can then edit from, as opposed to doing it all from scratch. I think that's one of those things that people typically kick to the end of the day, or even after business closes to do this follow-up. But this is something that you can do to really accelerate things, get things off your plate, and make sure that you've got solid deal philosophy, or sorry, deal velocity.
Mhm. Yeah. And you have to have a good solid deal philosophy as well.
There we go. All right. Little deliberate slip.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just pre-call insights. I think, obviously having it attached to Apollo and doing a little bit of pre-call research. I'd say this is just kind of a really quick at your elbow battle card that you can use. I've actually set up some other GPTs. I know a lot of other folks in the chat had kind of talked through them too, but something that can go a little bit deeper there. So customize a GPT around your organization. What problems do you solve? And then how does that map to the actual prospect company that you're going to be speaking to is going to be really important. So yeah, just going back to like discovery, the more you know, the more educated assumptions that you can make before you jump on that call, the more armed you're going to be. And it's kind of one of those things, learn it all, get an understanding of it, and then kind of forget it, and then allow for the call to unroll as as is natural.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we can assess like how close did we follow the script or the process, recognize the patterns of the objections and the opportunities and the beliefs and habits of the prospects that we're meeting with that are moving forward or not moving forward, and then ultimately, assign some targeted coaching and skill development. So the system is complete. Now it's time to go build it. So you've got the fortress, the radar, the bridge, the harvest. The reality is that if you leave the summit inspired, but tomorrow emails pile up, there's fire drills, the new strategy gets pushed to tomorrow, but and the risk is you get busy and you forget all the details and nothing changes. So don't let that be you. The solution here is to join the Apollo Lab, which is our free community, and we're actually going to be giving away all these resources that we've talked about throughout this whole entire session. So we've got the deep dive discovery script and the mutual action plan template from this particular session, as well as you're getting access to a sales community where you get to connect with top sales leaders sharing real-time insights and market changes. And so we'll be giving access to these resources as well as a free trial to a tool that we recently just launched called Sales Compass, which is an AI sales coaching tool that integrates with Apollo, and it gives you sales coaching insights and scores across all of um, your calls. It tells you recommended next steps, risk flags, executive summary across all of the different sales stages. So how are you doing on connecting and building trust and aligning on your goals and agenda and exploring challenges and impact, and tying the pain that your prospect is experiencing to the ROI so that ultimately you can get some coaching items, to work on with you or your team. And so this integrates with Apollo to take their insights that they're generating from their system and puts it in here to kind of guide you through the sales process, illustrating and using all of the best practices we've been talking about today. And so that's a wrap. If there's any final questions, happy to dive in, but I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you for attending the summit, and let's go crush it in 2026.
Mark, Jason, thanks, guys.
Thank you. Happy
Appreciate it.
selling.
Bye, y'all.